Week number 2 of the coronavirus hiatus carries on here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And as we're getting ready to start the show here, I knew that it was almost time to hit go because, like, everyone grabbed a beer and cracked it open. So it must officially be showtime. It's going to be a fun one here. Coming up in about a half hour, we're going to have Fred Brillant joining us as our guest this week to talk through everything COVID-19, how the team's coping, and we got a lot to talk about for this current DC United season, which is sort of still going on, right?
You know.
So I'll welcome to the show, as usual, Sam Castor, Joshua Morgan, Michael Black.
Hey, how's it
going? How
going?
you guys doing?
I'm doing great.
Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Got our 6-foot cords over here, practicing good hygiene and continuing to bring you the content.
It's pretty different than what we were supposed to be doing. We were supposed to be on the bus right now, headed up to Philly. Yeah,
the showtime this week actually worked out pretty well because this was exactly the time I think we were going to be shipping up to Philly for what's always a fun road trip. It's usually not a fun game, but the trip's quick. It's a good time. Beautiful weather outside, but hopefully if you're listening, you got a beer cracked open, and we can provide a little bit of a break from the craziness that's going on in the world right now. So, like, what are you guys doing without soccer right now? Because it's been an interesting week for me.
Every single day.
Yeah, just the league side has been reminiscing a little bit. It's been fun to watch the actual league content creators try to come up with stuff. They've been replaying big MLS games. Last week they had the Orlando City game. I know a lot of our friends and fellow podcasters and listeners watched that.
Yeah, I think the District Ultras actually had a viewing party on Facebook for that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Oh, it's amazing to watch Twitter feeds talk about the game as it's happening. Like they don't know what's going to happen, especially in that Orlando game. Yeah. It's exciting to relive it like it was live again.
I think people were talking about the VAR decision, like rehashing the VAR decision after the goal. They're like, oh, man, if that was the English League, they would have seen Acosta trip him and pulled it back.
Oh, and in that game, one of the things that you forget, obviously the memories are great, but you forget just how many times they went to VAR in that game.
Oh, yeah. It was ridiculous. It was like right when it was being implemented. It was insane. I feel like at least our league has gotten a little bit better about it. I don't know. I know Sam still is not content with it.
I mean, I'm still not. I think that it takes away sometimes, and it's getting a little better, but it definitely takes away from the flow of the game, and it takes away from everyone being able to understand what's going on. And I think that part of the game is human error, right? And it's frustrating, and definitely when it's yards offside and it's missed, pull that back, maybe use technology to enhance the game in that way. But when you're talking millimeters, I don't think the current rules of the game are written in a way to allow for technology to be incorporated in the game. And I think that that's the struggle that we were all watching the English leagues implement and MLS implement, was how to have these rules that were written for people to interpret. Now having technology interpret that has been the struggle.
Well, Sam, the good news is if the English leagues can't figure out a way forward and they just cancel this season, Leeds could have another season without VAR in the championship.
Yeah, that's great.
It's really a shame we don't have video right now because I think Sam just tried to kill me.
All right, well, it's fun being here with y'all. We'll see you next week.
But that Orlando game seems so far away. I mean, Rooney, Will Johnson, those are just figures of the past now. I mean, they're long gone.
But on the plus side, that Orlando game kicked off an impressive run for DC to finish the season. Lots of home
that
games.
Was so fun to be part of, right?
Lots of games to fill up the back half of the year. Maybe we're seeing something similar this year.
So when we eventually start watching soccer, the whole team just watches that game, and then we get off on that run again.
Well, that does bring up a good point, because I remember when we were kind of planning out what our season was going to look like doing this show, it was like, oh, this is beautiful. We got all these Saturday games, which I know all the fans were excited about this year, and we've got very few midweek games, plenty of time for things like the Leagues Cup and the Open Cup, and obviously everything is up in the air right now, but in theory, hopefully in a couple months we'll be back playing soccer again, and yeah, what is that schedule going to look like? And we're going to be doing a lot of this, I think, because it's going to be a condensed season, and we'll talk a little bit more about, after Fred comes on, we'll talk a little bit more about what could happen with the MLS season, but right now what we do know is that in accordance with CDC guidance, Major League Soccer has pushed back all games until May 10th at the earliest, which for DC United would be another home game, which if they play all the games, then our first 3 games are at home. That could cause problems later on. But Orlando City at home on May 16th, ironically enough, would be the first game back.
Right, you start pre-gaming now, right? What else do you have to do?
Yeah, and in the meantime, though, what have you guys been watching or doing at home? I mean, right now here in the studio, in quotes, we have ESPN 8 The Ocho on right now, which is awesome that they brought that back. And just like all of the sports media, I know they're struggling with content, but this is fantastic. We had the sign spinning championship on earlier, and now there's a fireman walking through a crowd. I don't really know what's happening here. World Hamburger Eating Championship.
Yeah.
That apparently a firefighter is about to completely destroy. He's at least bringing that energy.
I mean, we have a bunch of friends like at RFK Refugees and then DC United Kingdom who are producing content still, extra time, still putting out stuff. And we're like you said, we're still trying to push out episodes every week when we would have had a game. So catching up on that, trying to live vicariously through these shows to like pretend that the season's still like happening.
Yeah, and FIFA on the Xbox gives you a great opportunity to live out your dreams and making believe that things are still going on and things are still normal. So a lot of that.
Well,
Yeah, I know some MLS teams have like played virtual games in place of the games that were supposed to happen.
Leicester City moving on in the FA Cup virtual with a big win over Chelsea on FIFA.
I mean, I said that before. I think every MLS team should elect one
Well, they have
virtual
them. Yeah.
player, and no, but like a player on the team. Like they elect like Bill Hamid as the player for DC United, and he just like plays our games on FIFA. I'd watch the heck out of those streams. Are you kidding me? Put a mic on them. I'd absorb all that content.
Yeah, and they were doing that. I think in La Liga, actually, they had a couple players from one of the games they played on FIFA, like you're suggesting, and that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it'd be really funny.
And part of me would like it to be somebody who has never actually played the game before. I think that would just add to the entertainment factor.
That's absolutely what I said. I said pick the worst player on every single team and just have them go
we got
at
a
it.
good like young crop.
Yeah,
I think Paredes, Yao could get together.
Griff.
They probably, yeah.
Could you imagine Benny at the helm?
Have all the coaches do it. That'd be funny.
Yeah,
That'd be really interesting to try to see them like put their tactical game into FIFA.
I mean, if the DC United content team's looking for stuff, I think we could definitely help make that happen. Maybe what we should do is try to get some of the other podcasts to do a FIFA tournament with us.
I would really enjoy that, and I'm really bad at that game, so I would definitely look to my co-host.
Hopefully, I
to
draw
carry
Sam out of the
tried
pot in
and
the
true.
first round.
Speaking of draws, DC United, did you guys see this on Twitter? DC United did that jersey bracket, which, oh my gosh. I don't know. I have some questions for the fans of this team now. Look, I know history and all that, but the white jersey with like the submarine eagle in the background, it's just like way too much. And people loved that one. It made it way too far. In my opinion.
think it looked better in the picture, like the graphic of it on Twitter, than it actually did like in real life.
Yeah,
Let me pull this whole bracket up.
Yeah, the plain. I mean, are we calling it the plain white jersey?
Yes, everyone knows
away
what you're
jersey,
talking
the
about.
current away jersey.
The plain white tee.
I think we call it the plain white tee.
Yeah.
It exited pretty promptly. Some very questionable ones. We had a like for like matchup recently with the 3 stripes across. What I think it was like 1998 versus 1996. They were the same jersey.
And you know what's funny about that? That voting is now over, as that's the first one that came up here, and the 98 version won, which is I've got questions because it beat out the OG, right? I get that there's 2 stars on the 98 one, which is awesome, but it's also the somewhat newer logo, and that original logo was just so great.
It's very, I mean, I was a child, but it looks very 90s to me.
Oh, yeah. I love it.
That is definitely a league that cannot pay actual, like, graphic designers. So it's just like someone was like, hey, my daughter knows how to use a computer, and they created the logo for each team.
Yeah, and there's a big part of me that would like us to go back to that, 3 straps across the middle, a full-on throwback. We're not getting it this year for the 25th season, but, maybe for 30.
I'd love it. It would probably mean we'd have to stay signed with Adidas, who have been rolling out some meh jerseys recently, but I don't know. Maybe they shake things up.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think the league, they said they learned some things from some of the surveys that they do with fans each year, and definitely one of the things they said that they're working with Adidas on right now, and I think this might have been in an Athletic article. I apologize for not having the exact source on the top of my head, but talking about additional
that was Pablo.
Like,
reported.
yeah,
Third kit.
we talked about third kits, and they also talked about like one-off kits that they wanted to do a little more of. So like I know in the past they've done the like the blue Earth Day kits.
That were made out of all recycled plastic.
Yeah.
I love that. It was a little bit weird to watch when you were watching like the Chicago Fire in a light blue or like the LA Galaxy in a light blue. Like that was a little off-putting.
Specifically last year, we played NYCFC at home.
Yeah.
Got smoked, and yet we were wearing their baby blue color, and they were wearing black, and it was just like
I felt like the players were confused right now. I remember that game. I feel like
they
the
looked
players-
confused.
Well, yeah, that's what we're gonna chalk it up to.
But if we wanted to go the cherry blossom route, I'm all for that.
Dude, yeah, what is it going to take to buy one of those cherry blossom jerseys? I know AODC had them. I think the sale's over with now, right?
Yeah, it is. They were pretty nice. I was really excited about those. But to get back to the DC United bracket, it looks like a lot of, I mean, the black jerseys the home jerseys really smoked the white away ones. What did you all think of that? Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I mean, I have a 1996 white away kit, and I think it's those jerseys, the OG jerseys are just so pretty to me. Because they're symmetrical to each other, and they're just like a simple, clean look. I love it. I mean, I'm looking at the bracket, and they're not in there. I like the white one with the red stripes across that Birnbaum wore at Ben's Chili Bowl in the This Is
That's a
DC
good one.
video. Those are pretty solid.
Yeah, and I love the fact that for a club that's got so much tradition, so many cups in the trophy case, it's cool to look back at some of our our history. This is a club that has a lot of things that we can look back on with pride, and the stadium's done a lot to get in line with that this year and show that off, and seeing that in these jerseys is really cool. Like John said, going from 1996 to 1998, you see 2 more stars on there. That's exciting.
Yeah, that is a big deal. And I wonder how much of the voting kind of, how much of it is like this is the best looking jersey, and how much of it is like, oh, I'm really nostalgic for this time in the team's history when they were wearing this jersey.
Well, and perhaps a different question here, and looking at the bracket, it does look like they went home versus away in every single initial matchup. But was there a home jersey that we didn't like? I mean, for the most part, and it's funny because
John creates dead air.
Nailed it. Abby tells me all the time, like, they're the same, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, they're different all the time. But what they are is they're always black and a little bit of red. And so I think it's kind of hard to screw up the home jersey. The away jerseys seem to be where the team takes a little bit more leeway. They try to do something a little bit different. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it ends up completely blank. But to me, all of these home jerseys were great.
Yeah, and I mean, I think it's different. Like when you have black and white are obviously different colors, which is what I was about to say. So I'll stop y'all from joking. But I don't know, like a plain black just looks classier than a plain white, right? And so you can do a lot less almost with the black jersey, and it still kind of looks classic because like we're the black and red, like that's our team, that's our color, versus like when you just have a white jersey, like that is, I mean, like every team in the whole world wears white away. So if you're going to try to do something unique or creative with the white jersey like that, you have to, otherwise it's just a white jersey that has absolutely been seen somewhere else in the world.
I would be fine if we saved white jerseys just for Real Madrid. Like nobody else gets them.
Yeah, and
It's a little bit of bias.
it makes you kind of miss the days when you had a third jersey you could go to on occasion. We talk about having one-off jerseys like the Earth Day jersey, but I'd love to see a full red kit for the occasional game. It's nice to mix it up, and
Especially now that we have red shorts, that would look pretty.
Well, that's when you switch it, right? You do the
bring
red
back the black
jersey and the black shorts.
Heyo.
Or the white shorts, but actual white shorts, not that light gray nonsense that we kind of had.
I actually really liked the initial Buzzard Point jerseys. I mean, they had the like gray sublimated lines and stuff in them, so I thought those were cool. But yeah, then it ended up being like no red to be found.
Yeah,
and I didn't love that as much.
Yeah, I would really, like Black said, I would really, really love to see kind of like an all red jersey. It'd be interesting to see what kind of happened with that
jersey that I have. I got it at the RFK like going out of business sale.
Yeah.
I wear it a lot. But it's interesting when you look, again at this bracket, like there's only one, and I own it, white jersey that really sticks out to me as one that I like, and it was the 2016 or maybe 14-15 jersey that like was all red at the top and then kind of like faded
Fades
into
out,
the white.
yeah.
Oh yeah, that was. Yeah,
I have a Connor Doyle
Nailed it.
game/bench worn jersey that I got at that locker room sale. Listen, I love Connor Doyle. I freaking loved seeing him on the field, but I also understand what his role was on the team.
the defensive forward. Yeah. So, oh my gosh.
He still could have captained Loudon. Like he's on my list of players that could have and should have captained
I
Loudon
would,
United.
yeah.
I mean, he's the only guy who can create a Doylazo. So
He had such a great energy. I really liked watching him on the field. So yes, I do have his jersey, and I had a Birnbaum jersey of that, which was unfortunately stolen out of my friend's car.
All right, so can you tell us more about that? How did someone break into your car and steal a DC United jersey?
It was in an
was that the only
overnight
thing
bag.
stolen?
No, my entire overnight bag was stolen. It had like
Yeah. So they
all-
accidentally.
I was waiting to hear that
stole,
they
yeah.
left like $50 that was just out.
No,
but they
it
still
was
could've burned
in
off
that
it.
bag. Do you know what? Also, though, now that we're just talking about me, I guess my groundbreaking scarf was also in that bag. That was stolen, and I will literally never get over that. I was at the Audi Field groundbreaking, and I got a scarf, and I've asked the team. They said they have no more.
I'll see what I have downstairs. I might have an extra one.
I would cry. I would literally cry. I have been heartbroken for years over the fact that this happened to me.
Tried and true. Bring people together.
Making the dreams come true.
So we're going to talk a bit more about all of the off-the-field stuff right now. But if you'd like to join the conversation, we've got YouTube Live up. We've actually got Twitter Live working today, which is really cool. So you can always comment in the chat on YouTube, or you can join the show using the hashtag #TriedAndTrueDCU. And hopefully after the segment with Fred here coming up at the top of the hour, we will open up the phone line as well. So we'd love to hear your thoughts as always. So join us whichever way is easiest for you. So what jersey do we think wins this thing? Because it's down to the final four.
Could you bring up the Final Four bracket? And for anyone listening, either live or if you're going to listen back to the podcast on your favorite podcatcher,
Nailed it.
you could just look this up on Twitter. It's on DC United's Twitter. They've been tweeting it out pretty frequently, and that's how they're also doing the voting.
So we're in the Elite Eight right now. It looks like yesterday.
The only Elite Eight of this year.
Oh.
Yesterday, the 98 home jersey with the 2 stars beat out the OG.
By not a whole lot. Like, that was pretty even voting.
There's only 2 away jerseys remaining, actually.
That's what I mean. I would have
think
liked to see them do like a home side and away side, so you can kind of see, because that's why I kind of
The
said
away side
they're
would
very
be
different.
that'd be like the Western Conference would be the home jerseys, and the Eastern Conference, which is always weaker, would be the away jerseys. Our away game jerseys. Look, I mean,
No,
only
but
2 of them are in the
I
final
don't
eight.
think, but these two white jerseys that I'm looking at right now, it's one of the ones that Joshua referenced before with the eagle that is kind of imprinted in the jersey, and one of them with 3 red stripes across the chest. Those aren't the best away jerseys, right? Like the red with the red at top with the stripes going down with like the Hiatus. Like, I agree that that's my favorite away jersey, but that came up with probably like the 98 jersey, and I mean that's not gonna beat it, but it's still the better away jersey. So I would have liked to see like for like comparisons, and then just like
The 98
obviously-
jersey has the momentum. I think it goes all the way. I love the Volkswagen logo, but I mean, it's just not as clean. Those jerseys are kind of bland, if I'm being honest.
I'll tell you that when Adidas, Major League Soccer, and the clubs want to make more money, which now would be a good time to do that, they could pick pretty much any of these remaining jerseys here and sell it for a limited run, and I would buy it. I'm looking at all these.
A lot of people.
I own a couple of them,
Yeah.
but I would buy the ones that I don't own.
I've also got some nostalgia for that classic MLS logo. You know, obviously we've upgraded now to a shield that looks very professional, but there is something that pulls at your heartstrings when you talk about the soccer ball with the cleat, playing through it for MLS soccer. It's
There was a run of a couple months, I think it was, where U.S. soccer got rid of the soccer ball on their logo, and then MLS got rid of the foot and the soccer ball on their logo. It was just like, we're going to simple logos.
Going neutral.
We're established now. I think that's what it was. It was just established.
Now that people know what we are, yeah, we don't have to have the soccer ball in the logo.
Guys, look at how young Joey Chestnut is in this Burger King competition,
Oh my
taking on
God.
Takeru Kobayashi right now.
Speaking of looking young, I'm on DC United's Twitter profile, and 10 years ago today, we signed Andy Nahar as the second homegrown.
Wow, second home. What are we up to now in homegrowns? We're over 10, right?
I think we have a pretty decent homegrown program. Like, I don't know, quantity maybe not as high as like the RSLs, Phillies, and FC Dallas, but He's got some good. I mean, Bill's a locked up starter, one of the best goalkeepers in the league. Andy Nahar, for a while, was one of the better, I guess, right backs was where he played mostly, and then Durkin is tearing it up in his like lower level league in Europe. I mean, those are pretty good products.
I would buy a reprinted Andy Nahar 14 because that was precious. Like, he asked Ben Olsen if he could wear the number 14 because he was like inspired by Ben, and that's precious. I'd buy that jersey. But which begs the question, if they rerun these old jerseys, I have my opinion about this, but I'll ask you all first. Do you keep it to like the players who played on that team at that time, or do you put like the newer players on those rerun jerseys if they were to be released?
It depends on the font for me. If it's the new font, you can't have Olsen in the new font because he never played in that.
Yeah, it's so I'll use my my English club as an example. Was lucky enough to take a trip to England in this off season, which we're kind of back in, and actually Leicester City was doing exactly that. They were selling old jerseys. They had the old sponsors on them, which I think was pretty cool. I don't know how they negotiated that. But yeah, it was very limited. There was like a list at the end of every rack, and it was like, here's the players you can get in this jersey. So you couldn't get like a current day player in the 79 kit. Like, that wasn't a thing.
That's just an abomination.
I support the hell out of that.
Yeah,
that's
for
amazing.
Sure. It's funny, when I bought the red jersey that I was talking about earlier, by that time, that season, they had red keeper jerseys in MLS. And I remember asking, like, do you have, like, the numbers from this? And he was like, oh, my God, if you were here 2 days ago, I just threw that season's numbers out. I was like, what?
That's crazy. Oh, no.
And can we get back to being able to buy keeper jerseys? I mean, Bill Hamid being one of our biggest influences on the
star player.
Yeah. And the fact that we can't buy keeper jerseys anymore, that hurts.
I also have really strong opinions about, I feel like you should only put keeper names on the back of keeper jerseys. And obviously, yeah, it's difficult when you can't buy the keeper jersey, but it just doesn't look great to me.
Strong opinion. You're just adding some people. And I've seen quite a few Bill Hamid on
but like, I understand, like, absolutely homegrown. You want to support him. You want to like wear his jersey. But it doesn't look right when you see Hamid on the back of like a regular jersey.
The alternative is to wear a green or orange jersey.
It's tough. And you rock it.
It's tough.
It looks so bad. Well, you can't wear supporting different colors in the supporter section.
Well, and what do you do now? Because if you can't buy a keeper jersey, but Hamid's your favorite player, like, you're kind of stuck. I mean,
MLS sells
I don't
them.
endorse
I don't
it.
know.
I don't think you should get a keeper name and number on the back of a regular jersey, but it's tough.
Like, I'd love to see Bill play like a D mid spot for at least one game. I feel like that would be entertaining. And then you could wear it in the short sleeve.
And then you could wear it.
When we do the podcast FIFA tournament, you can put Bill in as a field player.
I'll still beat you too.
I
Joshua.
I can't even. Joshua's pretty good.
So yeah, I think we all just at MLS and get them to sell the keeper jerseys. I don't think it's the same thing as like wearing a quote unquote different color in the supporter section. If you're wearing your team's keeper jersey, like, that's not the same as wearing like a random Seattle jersey.
Sure, because you can't even buy long sleeve jerseys right now. Especially those early season games, or if we start going later this year, people need options.
It's also heartbreaking. I love those long sleeve jerseys, and I don't know why scale back? Like, what is the point of that?
Money. It's all money.
You're not making money.
I mean, when DC United had 4,000 people in the stands, I doubt they were like selling out of jerseys.
Well, and that was actually part of Pablo Maurer's reporting. When he was going deep for the Athletic on jerseys, it was like, hey, we want to bring back third kits, but like only certain teams are going to be able to do it because we're not going to make them for the teams that can't sell them. And I think while it's easy for us to say as fanatics who would totally buy that third kit right away, although if they keep charging $140, $150 for it, I'm not going to buy it. But I think you've got to have a fan base that's definitely going to buy it, or else Adidas is going to make a ton and they're not going to sell them and they'll lose money in the long run.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's just better for Adidas to say, like, okay, we're just not going to do this. But I think that's where it's a challenge to create a really good third kit. It's not just some mediocre thing that only the fanatics are going to buy. You do the cherry blossom jersey, you're going to have non-soccer fans wearing that cherry blossom jersey.
I think it'll happen. You've started to see some of the lower level teams like Las Vegas Lights, Ford Madison. I mean, their kits
are incredible.
Their kits are amazing. I almost bought a few of them. I mean, I have my local lower level soccer team. I'm from South Carolina, so I have a Charleston Battery jersey, and you'd love to support that kind of stuff. And I would love if MLS started branching out into like some crazy designs. I mean, Ford Madison's has like 1,000 times more pink on their jersey than Inter Miami. And it's great. I don't know. DC United could have done the same thing. They had a design plan for a pink jersey, and I would have bought it because pink on a jersey is just cool.
And this isn't a problem that's specific to MLS. We sometimes feel that MLS gets a lower priority when it comes to jerseys, but you look at international jerseys. A couple of years ago for the World Cup, you saw England and Portugal and the United States all wearing the same away red jersey. It's frustrating when you think about the different options that are out there.
Right, and the current. Oh my gosh, the current U.S. jersey, the blue one where they look like a spotted cow. It's just I don't know what. I guess they tried to be a little bit more creative. I
think the men's national team has to start playing better before anyone gives them.
Oh, I haven't seen them play in that. I've seen the women play because I pay more attention because they are competitive.
Are good.
Yeah.
I think it's really easy to have like a fan contest to create jerseys, because then you're not spending money on developing a jersey and you're getting people, because I mean at the end of the day, the people who work for the team or the people who work for Adidas are not necessarily fans of the team or like athletes, and that's totally fine. They're just doing their job, but maybe like they're not in touch with, and that's not to say that obviously like there are a lot of people in the DC United staff who are like very big fans. I'm not trying to like add anyone. I'm just saying that fans sometimes are more in touch with these things than the executives can be, because they're just kind of doing their job. So I have been saying this for a long time. I think it'd be super cool for some type of team to have like a fan contest.
That's what Madison did. They had their supporters groups like make the jerseys, and they're fantastic.
They're awesome, and they've got names of season ticket holders or something.
Yeah,
on
that's a really nice touch.
Oh yeah, like throughout. Yeah, well, it was cool when MLS did that too. They did the pictures on the back, and people.
Oh, and the numbers.
Yeah,
that was neat.
Yeah, and people absolutely like bought those.
It was like just a little bit creepy, but like the execution was cool.
I think I'd prefer the names, like the written out names, as opposed to a picture. Yeah, but it was still like a really cool thing, because then a lot of like the player interviews at the time too were like, it's very nice to like look around at your teammates and be like reminded, especially when you're at away games, that like these are the people you're playing for. It was like a constant, like our fan base is still with us even if they're not like physically here with us, which is really awesome.
Speaking of which, today was going to be the first away day of the season where DC United had afforded season ticket members the opportunity to go for free, which is super cool, and definitely something that looking forward to making up. Please let this Philly game be on a weekend again when it gets rescheduled, because, boy, this was just going to be perfect today. But we've got to set up for our next segment. As I mentioned at the top of the show, Frédéric Brillant is going to be calling in here in just a few moments. This guy has been absolutely critical since joining the Black and Red just a couple years ago at the start of the 2018 season. So Fred's been here as long as Audi Field has at this point, and he got to go on the away day adventures to the Soccerplex in Annapolis at the start of that 2018 season, and he's been a critical part of the team ever since.
Shouts from the supporter section last year for player of the season. He underrated, I think, so far for this team.
Yeah.
I think it's easy for a lot of folks to see on paper that the dude's 34 years old now and kind of write him off, but boy, not with the way he's playing. And he's currently tied for DC United's leading scorer in 2020.
What a ball.
So we're really looking forward to having Fred on. We're going to dial him up here in just a second, so we'll toss it to break. And when we come back, we'll talk to Fred Brillant here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. Presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes.
Can't listen to us live on YouTube? Find Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, or Pocket Casts the morning after the match.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 90 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening live. If you want to join the conversation, let us know what you think in real time using the chat on YouTube Live, on Twitter using the hashtag TriedAndTrueDCU, or text us at 202-892-6328.
Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 60 seconds.
Let us know what you think between games on Twitter at hashtag TriedAndTrueDCU, or email us at triedandtruedcu@gmail.com.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 30 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter at Tried and True DCU. Again, that's Instagram or Twitter at Tried and True DCU.
This is Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, and we're joined now live by Fred Brillant, center back for DC United. Fred, thanks for coming on the show. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good. It's so great to have you on. Thanks again for taking the time. And I guess we'll start. We're in kind of uncharted times here. So how are you and your family holding up with all with the current situation going on in the world?
We are good. We are good. You know, it's not easy for my kids to understand what's happened right now, but we are good. We try to do our best and pass the time as we can, but for sure it's not easy.
Definitely staying positive, it sounds like. And as far as the team, like, have they been doing much to keep you kind of in shape, or have they just been sending workouts to the house? I know obviously the league has suspended training, at least for the time being. So have you been able to stay active as best you can?
Yeah, we try. It's not easy because for myself, I don't have access to the gym. So I have a courtyard. I have a chance to have a courtyard in where I live. So I can go outside sometimes to the gym. But we have to run, and you know it's not easy because I need to find the field. But the field is there crowded. I can understand, but it's like that right now. And I try to avoid the contact with the people, but sometimes it's not easy. But yeah, I try to stay fit and I try to do something every day.
Yeah, sounds great. Sounds like you're doing the best you can. How about just kind of staying connected with your teammates? Have you been able to stay in touch with them? Have you all been doing video chats or anything like that?
Yeah, we try to stay in touch. You know, it's not easy. Everybody's at home right now, so we are lucky because we have the social media right now with Instagram, with all stuff like that. So yeah, but for sure it's not easy. The staff try to do also a call few time in the week to see if everything is okay with us. But yeah, we miss the guy for sure, and we can wait to be back.
Yeah, it's good to hear they're taking care of you, Fred. This is Josh. How does it feel? We were talking about this earlier. How does it feel to be tied as DC United's Golden Boot winner?
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
How does it feel to be tied as DC United's Golden Boot winner? We all saw that volley in the last game, and you're currently tied with one goal as the current Golden Boot winner for DC United. How does that feel?
About you talk about my goal?
Yeah.
Maybe it's the right time to be striker. No.
We'll plug you in up top.
Yeah, if we want to talk about the goal, I think it's a good goal, and first is a good free kick from Edison, and I follow the ball and I score. But we have to think about the result because it was very important for us.
What was that moment like? You know, particularly right after that goal went in. I mean, that was a game that was stressful. Miami took a lead very early. We had a big red card decision, big PK converted by Yamil, and then you just blasted it into the back of the net, and the stadium erupted. And we could see from the supporters section, just like all of the players were so excited. You guys ran over, just getting us even more fired up. I mean, how did that feel?
Yeah, it's good. You know, it's good for the supporter. You know, it's a game with a lot of situation, bad and good situation. So I think it's good for the supporter, but for us, it's very hard. You know. And the game, we knew exactly what was the game. Very hard pressure from Miami. They did well first from the first 15 minutes, and we conceded the goal. And there is a situation with the red card. We conceded the goal at this time, so it was not easy. But at this time we turn our mind, and I think we show a very good character, like we did in the past. I think we have a very good character in the team, and we did it, and we won the game, and I think it's good for the future. Right now, for sure, it won't be easy to come back, but it will be the same for every team. So. Yeah, like I said, I can't wait to be back because I miss it.
Are those the opportunities that you relish? You know, obviously being in defense, your first role is to protect our goal. But when you have a chance to go forward on be it a free kick or a corner or some kind of opportunity, there are you stepping up, ready to make an impact, or you know, how do you prepare yourself to be ready to shift gears in a situation like that?
Yeah, we work on the set pieces for sure because I'm tall, like Steve with me. You know, is the strength for us doing the set pieces. So we work on doing the week, doing the preparation, and this one, you know, we were in the good spot, just behind the wall, ready for the second ball, and the ball came in my feet. So sorry. You hear me?
No, go ahead. We still got you loud and clear.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, yeah, in the good spot, and I took my chance, and I think it's a good goal.
Now, at the other end of the field, you know, us standing in the stands, we can see a lot going on when you're all are defending a dangerous opportunity. How does it feel to have Bill Hamid in your ear, letting you know what he wants, and how do you all keep organized in situations like that?
Yeah, like I said, we work on during the week, and I think the best thing is the communication with the keeper, with the back four during the situation, and I think we did well last year and this year. So yeah, I think is first of all about the communication, especially during this scenario, this case.
Yeah, that's great. Obviously, as we've said, these are unprecedented times, kind of getting 2 games in and then having to take a break. But it's great that we ended that on a high note with getting that win over Miami. What were the team's takeaways from those 2 games? Have you all, I know you said the front office has been organizing calls for you all, but what was the feeling in the locker room maybe before the season was put on hold after those 2 games?
Yeah, the first game was very bad. It's very hard to start with the bad game like that, especially when you lose. It was very important for us to bounce back against Miami. We did it, but to be honest, we didn't have too much time to talk about the last 2 games after that because there were the break and there was this case with the virus. So. We're going to talk about the situation when we will be back. But to be honest, we didn't talk about the last 2 games too much after the games.
Great. So yeah, I guess moving forward, how do you think this break in the season will affect the rest of the season and the mentality going back into the games?
The mentality, no, I don't think so because like. When I talk with my teammate or my friends, we are ready to be back, and we can't wait to be back. Because we miss it. It's our passion before our job. So yeah, we want to be back. So I think the mentality will be there for sure. But it will be strange because the schedule will change. We're gonna do I think a small preparation before the first game was coming. It will be strange, but no, the mentality would be there for sure.
No, that's really exciting. And for those of you guys just joining the show right now, we're live with Fred Brillant here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. And if you've got questions for Fred, you can ask him using the hashtag Tried and True DCU on Twitter. That's the hashtag Tried and True DCU.
Yeah, so that's great. Obviously, the fans are really excited to watch you all play again. That's great that you all are raring to go. There have been a lot of different alternatives tossed around for getting back into the season. So I've heard that there's the potential for the teams to play in front of empty stadiums, basically to have no fans within the stadiums. And then there's also obviously the potential to just wait until everything gets a little calmer and fans are allowed to be in the stadium again. So which do you prefer? Would you rather get started sooner without the fans in the stadium, or would you rather kind of wait and have that atmosphere back when we start up again?
To be honest, I prefer to play in front of my crew or front of my supporter, because he's the 12 guys. We need the supporter, and I think it's normal, and we have a very good supporter in DC. They help us all the time, and I will prefer to play in front of my supporter. But to be honest, I don't know how it will be, because we have a lot of games to play in front of us, but we have to reschedule the game. So maybe we're gonna play some games in an empty stadium. I don't know. Now we are, like we said, we live day by day and see what's happening in the future. But we don't know yet. We don't know yet when we're gonna start the training. So they say right now 1 more week, but maybe more. We don't know yet. Depends all the various or I can say the various going. So let's see.
Yeah, lots of unknowns right now. One thing, Fred, you've been in this league for over 5 years now, and I'm curious from a player's perspective, which stadium or which city is the most difficult to play in as a member of the away team? What's the hardest away day for you?
Atlanta is a very hard stadium. The first is the turf, and the crew over there is incredible. The first time I played there, I think that there were 80,000 people for a MLS game, so it was crazy. But it's very good atmosphere. We play for this kind of atmosphere, but I think it's hard to play there, especially against Atlanta.
Are there any stadiums or fields in the league that are tougher to play on? Obviously you have some experience playing up in New York City, and they've got kind of a unique situation there. Is it tough to shift gears to play on a slightly smaller field like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but New York for me is, I play there, so even is a baseball field. I know it is, but when you play there for the first time, it's very strange. But right now, for me, it's okay. If we talk about New York, for sure, it's something special for me, because I used to play there during 2 years. But I think the more difficult is for me the turf, and like maybe Seattle or New England, the turf over there. But now it become usual, because it's almost my 5th year here in US, so it become usual.
Well, we all here wish that we were getting ready to watch you play up at the Philly Union Stadium in Chester, but we just want to thank you so much for coming on and fielding some questions with us. And I just want to say that we've been following your social feed. We love the pictures, the arts and crafts, penguins, and the like. So thanks for sharing those moments with us. It's a bright spot for us. And again, thank you for coming on.
For sure, my pleasure. I hope we're gonna see us very soon, very soon, in the stadium or even in the training facility.
Yeah, thanks so much, Fred. Best of luck to you and the team for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll see you live at the stadium on the show here in the not too distant future. So thanks again for everything.
Thank you for having me, and stay safe, guys, and stay at home as much as possible.
Well, it's tough, but we're doing our best. That's what we got to do, right?
Okay, see you. Bye-bye.
All right, thanks so much. That's Frédéric Brillant, center back for the Black and Red, number 13. We're going to throw it to break. We'll be right back to wrap things up right after this here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll be back in less than 2 minutes.
Can't listen to us live on YouTube? Find Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, YouTube, or Pocket Cast the morning after the match.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 90 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening live. If you want to join the conversation, let us know what you think in real time using the chat on YouTube Live, on Twitter using the hashtag TriedandTrueDCU, or text us at 202-892-6328.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 60 seconds.
Let us know what you think between games on Twitter at hashtag TriedandTrueDCU or email us at triedandtruedcu@gmail.com.
Tried and True, the DC United post-game podcast presented by Heineken, will be back in less than 30 seconds.
Hey, thanks for listening. If you like what you hear, go ahead and give us a follow on social media. You can find us on Instagram or Twitter at TriedandTrueDCU. Again, that's Instagram or Twitter at TriedandTrueDCU.
Welcome back to Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken, and a special thanks again to Frédéric Brillant for joining the show today. Great interview, and if you missed it, if you're just tuning in live now, we'll have the podcast up here shortly across all your favorite, what are they called, Sam?
Podcatchers.
Podcatchers, yes. We'll be up shortly after the show on there. So now the phone line's open. We do encourage you to join the show via phone as well. You can always call us at 202-892-6328. That's 202-892-6328. DCU. We've got what I think is going to be an interesting and potentially a bit contentious segment to bring the show home here. We're going to talk a little bit about what the league can, could, should, might do, I guess, as we get hopefully to the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic. There's a lot of options on the table right now, and if you've read anything in The Athletic this week or across other news sources, I think Yahoo Sports had one as well. With the season coming back in the beginning of May at the earliest, and I think a lot of folks are hearing June is potentially a lot more likely. This was yet another year that the league hoped to wrap early. They were going to wrap, at the end of very early November, end of October, I think?
I think it was end of October, yeah, which is a change from previous seasons, which we've gone as late as December, and that's partially the way that they set up the schedule, and it's partially that there's an international break in there, so you had to push some of those the end of the playoff games and the MLS Cup that far, and with what we were hoping to do for this season, we would have wrapped up prior to that international break.
Yeah, and it seems as if that's almost certainly not going to happen this year with the way the scheduling is going to be going. There's been talk about potentially cutting the U.S. Open Cup as a whole, which would be devastating to me as I really, really love the Open Cup, but it sounds like the USL it has already kind of told the league, look, we're not going to be able to make that work this year. DC United have commitments along with a lot of other teams for the League's Cup. There's some CONCACHAMPs that has to finish out in theory. And, of course, this was supposed to be the first big all-star game with Liga MX this year. And I know Major League Soccer does not want to miss out on that. So how do we do it? How do we fit all these games in?
Well, there were also those friendlies. We were going to have Wayne Rooney back in town.
Well, that's true. Right? I think that Pablo reported that, but yeah, it was like part of the terms of him leaving was that he come back. I mean, of the things, and I know this might hurt some people's feelings, but I would rather play Open Cup than have Wayne Rooney come play in a friendly and trot around for 30 minutes.
I mean, I'd rather play Open Cup than League's Cup, but I know the League's Cup makes a lot more money, unfortunately, I think, at this point.
Yeah, the Open Cup, though, it's the longest running tournament in America, right?
In soccer. Soccer, because of the other tournaments stopped before World War I and World War II. So it would be tragic. I mean, they should open. I'll go play in the Open Cup, right?
You have our Monday league come play.
DC United FC is our amateur version of the team.
I think we were.
We get to wear the jerseys that win the bracket as our official kit.
There we go.
That's funny.
Yeah, there's been a few proposed ideas that I've seen to finish the MLS season. One of my favorite ones came from Reddit. Someone proposed that we go to a World Cup bracket where the teams enter group style just like the World Cup, and then play to a final, and the winner of the World Cup MLS tournament is the champion of MLS that year. And it just kind of fulfills that prophecy, that reporter horribly asking if Schweinsteiger, if Chicago were going to win the World Cup. It could happen.
Just a year too late for Schweini to be part of it.
I mean, there's still time, right?
That's true.
Well, if you went that style, do you draw pods by region? Do you draw everyone randomly?
Well, yes. Let's seriously talk about this.
Listen, these are unprecedented times. Anything could happen.
I think we could get. What would the group of death be? And would it be Seattle, Portland, Vancouver, LAFC? That's got to be the group of death. Or I guess San Jose is closer.
Well, the group of death is one team who clearly can't make it through, right? It's like the 3 power teams and the one team that's obviously going to die.
Well, I mean, I think if you put Atlanta in that group, if we throw out
Ooh.
throw out geographic pots.
Yeah, are we closer to Atlanta,
Portland, Seattle,
Orlando,
LAFC
Miami
or something? Oof.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, because if you're doing it geographically, is Nashville over with these Eastern teams, or are they playing up in
Sam Kastner?
Don't get me started on that one
now. Speaking of which, one thing that's potentially positive coming out of this is we're gonna have to reschedule the Nashville game in theory that none of us were gonna be able to go to. So maybe we'll be able to pull that.
Although
off.
I think we're all crossing our fingers that they don't just kind of shuffle the rest of the season, because I think that we're all keeping our hopes up that we're going to be able to play in August. And DC United had the away at Miami and then the away at Orlando.
Glorious.
On Saturday and then Saturday, so we were all going to go down and do a beach week.
Throw the Atlanta game in there, and we could hit all 3.
Wouldn't that be perfect?
That would just be beautiful.
At MLS.
I continue to get hopper alerts for that trip, and it's kind of comical how cheap those flights are right now. But I'm just very unwilling to pull the trigger with no certainty in the air. But I think one of the things that we've seen thrown around that seems the most plausible to me is, in all seriousness, they're probably going to have to cut out some games. And that might be because they want to try to fit in competitions like the Open Cup and the Leagues Cup and things like that. Or, depending on how long this goes on for, they may have to cut out games just for time. I mean, I think the new CBA, and actually I believe this was the case in the old CBA, it requires a month at least of time off between the MLS Cup final and the start of preseason training, which, of course, part of that is Champions League. So those clubs starting a little bit earlier. So one of the things we've heard thrown around would be that you could cut out the games against the opposite conference.
Yeah, well, before we get into that, would we rather see games cut from the league to play the Open Cup? I think the answer, I know the answer, but or would we rather play all the league games and just cut those tournaments?
I mean, I'm one of those people. I mean, I love watching DC United play. I would play it regardless. But I look for the schedule. And I'm like, oh yeah, Carlos Vela is coming to town. I would love to see that game. Ibrahimovic is coming through. I mean, there's out of conference games that.
Do you think Quincy still got rent-free space in Zlatan's head? You brought up the Galaxy.
Yeah. I have strong opinions about all of those matters, and I don't think any of them positive. So I'll just keep my mouth shut. I'm glad. Never mind. I'm glad that Ibrahimovic has moved on for the sake of the league.
Well, and going back to trying to reschedule these games and make something that works, there are a lot of different elements that go into it. It's not as simple as sitting down and saying, hey, we'd like to play on these days and these are the teams that are available. You've got stadium restrictions, the shared stadiums. We talked about New York City sharing theirs with a baseball team. We're fortunate here in DC that Audi Field, we generally get first right on
it's ours,
what happens there.
So,
it could impact the Spirit games, though, depending on how this plays out. But you're right.
This is a huge year for them, so it might be crucial for them because they were maybe testing the waters to move to Audi Field full time, and then now that they haven't even started their season. They haven't had one training session. So
it could be a banner year for New York City FC, though, because their backup plan was City Field, and the Mets would also be in the same boat as everyone else with trying to fit in as many games as possible.
I can't wait to go to Hartford away because they sometimes play their away games in Connecticut, and then
I would actually be okay with that. we get some pizza in Connecticut on the way. I could make that work. I've done Red Bull away. It would be fun to go to Red Bull Arena to watch a New York City FC game. Just because.
Could we sit in the supporter sections? Who gets to sit in the supporter section? The New York City fans or the DC United fans?
The New York City fans.
Yeah,
at Red Bull Arena, they get to sit.
Their home game.
Yeah, it's technically their home game.
Oh gosh, the people will be rioting outside the stadium.
You can't enter the Red Bull supporter section in DC United, like you'll just burst into flames. Like you can't.
It's a feature of that.
Exactly. They built it in over the preseason. You might have missed that one.
And
but,
we know they got plenty of space there. So
Yeah,
it's true. There's plenty
Well,
of
we'll just fit all 3 groups in. It's just all.
but
hate
Sam,
each
back
other.
to your question. I would say, my personal opinion is, I would rather cut the games against the Western Conference to fit in the Open Cup, because I really like the Open Cup. So that would be my vote. But again, we're talking about a situation here where we can make all the games fit, and we're probably playing 3 games a week quite a bit, which means we're going to be seeing a lot of Loudoun United in the Open Cup. But they're not eligible on their own.
So, like, follow-up question, would you rather see the opposite conference games cut, or would you rather just play everyone in your conference once? Remember, this is the first season that we already aren't playing every team.
Yeah, cut the Western Conference games.
I would rather cut the double within conference games.
I think I'm with Sam on this. I think I'd rather go back to the trying to play everybody. Obviously, as MLS has grown, it's going to be tougher to get as many games as those as you want. And yes, it would be unfortunate to only get New York Red Bulls at home and not get to go play them at Red Bull Arena. But I think I would rather get that full mix and have a more equitable schedule across the board than playing teams in your conference, which we've already kind of hinted at is a little bit arbitrary. Like, why is Nashville in the West?
Yeah. So that would be more like a college football situation where, this year you just play against Clemson at Clemson, so you're at an advantage this year. And then probably next year we go back to the regular season. But, it's just a fact of life in other sports that, you have to go away this year. And if you're good enough to beat Clemson at Clemson, then clearly you were going to, or if you're not, then maybe that was just, your team wasn't good enough at all.
Josh likes Clemson.
I do like Clemson, and it's been a while since Florida State won at Clemson. I just want to come. Yeah, go ahead.
Anyway, I mean, I was already pretty mad going into the season, as I said, because we're already not playing every single team, and that's pretty nonsense. So I think I'd rather see we don't play every Eastern Conference team twice, but let's throw back in the 3 teams that we're not going to be able to see.
Right. I'd rather see Vea and Brendan Aronson than Brendan Aronson twice for Philly. Right.
See, I guess, I mean, I totally see where you guys are coming from, and you could make the supporter shield matter a little bit more if you at least played everybody once. And you're right, you just have to deal with some teams you're going to get at home, some you're going to get away. I guess I look at through the lens of I want to have as many away day opportunities as possible, and games on the East Coast are much easier to do that with. So I'd rather be able to make sure I can go to Philly, Jersey, New York.
So it's all about you in this situation.
I mean, it's episode 5, and you're just coming out.
Sounds like this is my podcast, so welcome to the show.
Plus, I think we're gonna probably have a better shot at beating some of those teams than we would the northwest corner.
Well, that's the thing too, right? Like I think it's an undeniable fact in all of MLS that the Western Conference is just a harder conference. So, it makes it hard to then, I mean, again, because we're not playing every team this season, or even because, you've played every team in your conference twice, it makes it hard to really compare conferences. It makes it hard last season to say, like, is New York City as good as LAFC? No, but also, like, LAFC is playing harder competition, right? And as much as like teams are like, oh, you don't play down to your competition level, like, you're going to play your game the whole time. It's definitely hard when you're playing Orlando twice, who hasn't entered the playoffs ever, versus when you're playing like LAFC twice and they're forcing you to up your game and be more creative and think about how you're going to break down these tactically better teams. Like, you already see that disparity.
And you get a different priority on some of the games too. When you talk about playing games in your conference, if that's how you're going to choose, your standing in your conference is how you make the playoffs. Those are games you're going to value more. Particularly when you talk about having fixture congestion towards the back half of the season, it does get challenging. And I get John's point that if that's how you're going to decide the playoffs, that's you got to make sure that you have an equitable battle for conference supremacy. But I'd still like to see you play everybody.
Yeah, no, that's a great point too. Like, the conference games do matter more. If you pick up games or if you pick up points against the other conference, like, that's great. Those are basically bonus points to you. But when you're talking about making playoffs, because it's within that conference structure, it's more important to beat the teams within your conference.
I think it'll just come down to more of a logistical thing. I know, Sam, you work in events. I think it'll be when they find out they can play games, because it's going to take time to completely make a new schedule.
Well, that's what I wonder. Are they going to just slot in the remaining games, or are they going to completely scrap whatever schedule is left in existence and reshuffle all the teams together?
Well, one of the sad but true moments of the days we're living in right now is it's not like anybody has any other plans right now. So I mean, for the time, for once, scrapping a schedule and kind of redoing it, like I think they could probably get away with that if that's what has to happen. It's crazy times, and one of the things that we've talked about a bit ever since the league continued to expand and we stopped playing everybody twice and we continue to get more and more difficult is who gets to host MLS Cup, and that's gone to the team with the most overall points, the Supporters Shield winner, or if they get eliminated, the team with the highest amount of points remaining. A lot of folks over that time period have called for MLS to go back to a neutral site, which they used to do, and it sounds like that's something that MLS is very much considering this year, depending on how the schedule shakes out. Somewhere where they could go potentially indoors, so that could be at a non-MLS city or a future MLS city that's got an NFL stadium that's a dome, or just a stadium in nice weather, so presumably somewhere in the South, because if we're talking about a December MLS Cup, in theory it's going to be cold up in the North. So what do we think about that?
I'll let Black share and Joshua share the wrong opinion, and then I'll jump in.
So I completely understand that Supporters Shield has lost its value over the years, especially when you talk about not playing everybody. It's hard to
Red Bulls. Sorry.
It's hard to say that the Supporters Shield is the end all be all when you haven't played everybody and you've got unbalanced schedules and what have you. But I do like the idea of having the regular season have a bigger impact when it comes to MLS Cup. We haven't seen huge divergence as far as a number one team from one conference going through playing the number 7, but I do think that there needs to be some value to having had a solid regular season, getting to host that MLS Cup at home. It's a big deal, and your supporters should have the opportunity to celebrate that. And obviously we're talking about trying to play in December. You would be looking for a warmer climate. Is that an advantage to some of the other clubs? Maybe not some of the ones like the Torontos and the New York Cities who are going to have harsher weather in December. I like seeing it where the team has earned it.
Yeah, I think I'm just looking at it logistically. You could have, a lot of things, but this is a hypothetical. So Nashville, Atlanta playing the MLS Cup final in LA. And there would be support. I'm sure those teams would travel, but what stadium are they filling? You're going to have a couple thousand people for an MLS Cup final who are actually fans of the team playing there? Or are we just having go back to earlier MLS where it's just full of soccer moms taking their kids to the soccer game?
And some of that I think kind of goes to what's the league looking to get, right? Do they want the money? I think we're at the point now where at least the MLS Cup rights, those games are being played on network television now, so they're making the money there. I think, and one of the big reasons why they've really said we're not playing games behind closed doors is they want the atmosphere.
Right.
And so you're right. If you get in that situation and you're playing at, like, say, the new Rams Chargers Stadium in Inglewood, massive stadium would be filled with a largely neutral crowd in that case.
Yeah, and we've talked about developing stadiums, getting additional soccer specific and teams in their own stadiums. Playing MLS Cup can be a reward for that, and you see that in other sports where you are almost guaranteed to get a Super Bowl if you build a new football stadium. But when you talk about trying to do that in MLS, I don't know if you have that same way. We've already kind of accomplished that by rewarding teams that build new stadiums with the All-Star game. So you're already getting additional benefits for that. You don't have to give them an MLS Cup, make it tied to the game.
All right, Sam. I know you're trying to get in here.
So I disagree. And here's why. So I think we were just talking about how it's already kind of nonsense that you're not playing every team the same amount, right? We're not playing every team at all in this iteration of the way that they had previously set up this 25th season. But when you're playing more Eastern Conference teams, if they're easier versus Western Conference teams, right, then you're not necessarily rewarding. It's hard to reward something that's imbalanced in the season already. So I don't think it's necessarily reward, like, that's kind of a weird, if it's already unbalanced, you can't say that one team deserves it over another because they played easier teams or harder teams and that up their level or whatever.
So as a supporter, as a DC United fan, DC United qualifies for MLS Cup, would you like them to have the opportunity to host it?
Yes, but I'd also love for them to establish where the MLS Cup is being played, because that also kind of spreads the wealth. John was kind of mentioning.
I don't think it would spread the wealth at all. I'm sorry to cut you off, but is MLS Cup final, if it's a set location, is it ever coming to Audi Field with 20,000 seats?
No. But so I guess
does it deserve to with a 20,000 seat stadium?
DC United never gets to host the MLS Cup. Atlanta gets to host it every year.
Yeah, probably that's something that should have been
So
determined.
Atlanta has MLS Cup home field advantage every single year.
Well, first of all, they don't make the cup every year. Second of all, it's not always in Atlanta, when you're talking about a couple thousand seats. But, I mean, yeah, that's something that owners need to take into consideration when they're building their stadiums. They need to think, what is our long term for this?
So you bring up an interesting point for sure. I mean, I definitely don't think, I know for land restriction purposes, Audi Field probably couldn't have been much bigger, or else we would have been in a lot more debt and probably not filling those seats, at least for the
So we get an owner who
regular,
pays for it.
But I think that kind of leads into, like, when you've got Wednesday night home games, or you've got Saturday cold weather games, or the team's just not good, then you're looking like Sunderland with the entire upper deck shut.
Or Red Bulls, yeah, you put money into it. It's more incentive.
Well, but the Red Bulls only have 25,000 seats, so they're not that much bigger.
So the cap at Audi Field to please enough fans to get people to fill Audi Field is very different than to please enough fans to get the Mercedes-Benz in Atlanta filled, right? So the owners are essentially determining what their success is going to mean, because DC United can say that we sold out. In a couple of years, they can say we sold out every single game, but that's very different from Atlanta or LAFC being able to say that we sold out every single game. So are we rewarding the owners who are like, we're not going to put money into being able to get more fans into the stadium because we're going to be able to host the cup anyway? Or are we rewarding the owners who are going to put money into building really large soccer-specific stadiums and growing the sport in the country and saying you all will get to host the MLS Cup, and then you'll be able to reap the rewards? Because I think that there are enough fans of soccer who are going to go to these games. So, for example, in 2007, the MLS Cup was in RFK, and watching at home, you could hear the Barra Brava, the Screaming Eagles, chanting DC United through the TV. DC United was not playing in that game, but you could hear it. So I don't think it's a question of whether or not fans will go. I think everybody's sitting in this room, and most of the people listening, and most of the people who will listen later on, you're going to go if it's an MLS Cup, right? Because it's two teams who probably have powerhouse players, and like Joshua was saying, he wants to see Vela play at Audi Field, so he's going to go to that game regardless of if DC United is playing or not.
But you're just not going to have the atmosphere that you had for the, I hate what they call it, but the LA Galaxy LAFC game during the playoffs. That you watched I can't stand it. You watch that game because there's an atmosphere behind it, and MLS Cup would not have that if it was in a neutral
I disagree. It just doesn't have an atmosphere that heavily favors one side, but that's almost better, right? Because then you just have people who are there for the love of the game, and you're just watching the game happen. And I mean, everyone's going to have their bias of who they want to win, or do you pull for your conference, you know what I mean? If it is at Audi Field and Philly is in the final, are we pulling for Philly because they're in our conference, or are you pulling, for the other side because they have better players? Like it opens up the minds and creates better, knowledgeable soccer fans.
So I think I've got two thoughts based on what you said, Sam. One is, I would actually argue that if they're going to go with a neutral option, right, I actually don't think the league would pick an MLS stadium, or at least a soccer-specific one in those cities. I think God forbid they would pick FedEx in our area, but I think if they picked the New York metro area, they'd probably pick MetLife. I think if they picked Houston, they'd probably pick whatever the football stadium's called nowadays. I forget the sponsorship. It changes quite a bit. NRG, yeah. I don't think they would pick one of the MLS stadiums, period, unless it's one of the ones that's shared with a football team, or it's one of the larger ones like Toronto, because I think they would want to sell as many tickets as possible. And so they would say, great, we're going to pick this market, and then within the market, we're going to pick the stadium that's bigger for our flagship game.
And that's, one of the issues too. You talk about, there've been issues on ticket allocations on which team gets how many under the current format and where the revenues are going. For a lot of these owners, just being able to say that my stadium is hosted an MLS Cup is reward enough, and they can make the cash flow as it will. But you're right, John. If you start playing it at other sites that aren't affiliated, kind of similar to what you see with the NCAA tournament, where you've got a school hosting it, but usually at a pro arena, it becomes a very different concept altogether.
Yeah, and I think the travel opportunity would be cool, for sure. I mean, not that we don't travel enough throughout the season, but if it turns out until we can go to every game, we don't travel enough. But I think if they announce in June or July, right, say we get to the other side of this, we figure out what the new schedule is, and they say, we're doing this, and we're going to play it in, pick a city. Pick maybe St. Louis. Pick a new city that's coming into the league or something. Then it's like, okay, fine. No one's going to have...
harder on the away fans to get there, so that just exponentially increases that home field advantage, which I just, don't agree with, because, again, as we've said, the regular season isn't equal, so why should someone receive that big of an advantage for something that they potentially didn't earn in the right way?
I hate to go back to college football, but I think 2 years ago, Alabama and Clemson played in the national championship in Santa Barbara, and there was 2,000 fans from each team, and I think it's a 80,000 seater. 2,000 fans from those teams went, and besides that, it was just people who had money that wanted to go to a big event, and I'd hate for that, the passion that I see in the stands. Which is what Super Bowl is. Yeah, I'd hate to see the passion I see in the stands week in and week out turn into a bunch of rich people that have nothing better to do buying all the tickets.
Well, I don't know that soccer is the thing that rich people are going to go do, so I don't think we're quite at that point.
Corporate sponsors
have a lot of money. Still, okay, so they're filling the boxes, but I don't think at this point rich people are going to go stand in the supporter section, or they're just going to want to sit and watch a soccer game.
And I think we may be at the back end of this particular discussion, but when you talk about putting a major game like MLS Cup or the All-Star game in a non-soccer venue, like John mentioned St. Louis, which we're looking to have an MLS team soon, but you can use it as an opportunity to test out the market and see what kind of response there is there. That's one of the reasons that Atlanta got an expansion team, was that they were selling out when it came time to host CONCACAF games. You can have an opportunity there, but it may be that MLS is getting to the maturity point with the number of teams in the league that we don't necessarily have to test markets like that. I mean, we do similar things with the U.S. soccer team. Maybe that's an argument for it.
See, we've almost flipped sides, because I would argue that it needs to be in a space where there already is. It needs to be in a region or like a city where there already is an MLS team.
Let's just play it at Wembley.
Solid. That's going to get a lot of away fans.
Yeah. There's also plenty of MLS UK fans.
James Graham would be
there for sure.
I know there's a lot of other, there's a Red Bull UK, there's a Philly UK, there are a lot of other UK podcasts for the other teams. So
and then maybe they'll finally send either an FA Cup final or a Champions League final over here, which, by the way, I think is a terrible idea. They should keep those. I as much as I would love to go see one of those finals, they need to keep those in here.
You were going into the La Liga games that were...
No. All right, so that was more interesting of a segment than I expected.
What did we decide? What conclusions did we come to?
I don't think any of the four changed our opinion. But it was definitely a good healthy discussion. We've got some other topics to talk about, but we've also got a couple more weeks without soccer, so maybe we'll table those for next week. So I think at this point, any parting shots from the room?
Wash your hands.
Yeah, wash your hands, stay inside.
Just leave it at that.
Yeah, this is normally this is definitely the part of the show where I remind you to please follow us on all the social media platforms that we're on, Twitter and Instagram. Join the show during the week. If you guys have thoughts when you're listening to us back on the podcast, let us know your thoughts using the hashtag TriedandTrueDCU. Please give us a rating and tell a friend. Those are kind of the most important things you can do to help continue to grow the show. Normally, right about now, I'd be asking if you knew anyone who wanted to put an ad on our program, any small businesses. But this week and for the foreseeable future, I'm going to flip that a little bit and ask you as our listeners, if you have the means, please go visit one of the small businesses that's still open near you, whether they're just doing carry out or delivery if they're a restaurant, or if they're a small business that's offering their services in a slightly modified way while we're in the middle of this pandemic. Please support your small businesses for the time being, because they're really the lifeblood, at least of DC and most other cities in the world, and hopefully we'll be on the other side of this sooner rather than later, and we can all kind of get back to business as usual and supporting the game and the team we love. That's a wrap for this week. So thanks for joining us here on Tried and True, the DC United postgame podcast presented by Heineken. We'll let you know real soon when our show is going to be next week. But